Today I'm down here shooting a video on how to set up a Miller-Matic 350P. This happens to be the front of the welder, and we're going to do some more video to give you guys a little example of how to set this machine up and get it ready to weld down here in class. Okay, these machines happen to use three-phase power, and this happens to be a three-phase plug. You have a notched plug, and you actually got three conductors and a neutral on this plug, and it's going to plug into that outlet right down there. Now, plug it back in the hole, and now we're going to go and take a look at where the gas connection is and what you got to do for that. Okay, there's the three gas connections we got to have. We've got the green one, this first one is argon, the second one is blended, and the third one is CO2. And you want to make sure that the flow meter is hooked to the gray connection, or the gray pipe, the flow meter's on there, and that you can actually, the line's all connected and everything's looking where it's supposed to look. Okay, this happens to be the drive roll for the unit that we're using. And then if we do a little turn, here's the roll of wire, or filler metal. The filler metal in this particular machine is 035. When you hook the filler metal up, you want to make sure you put this hub back on, and make sure the wire should be peeling off the top of this roll. If you look real close, you can see the wire right here where my finger is. That's the wire that goes into the two drive rolls, two sets of rolls, and then moves from there. The drive roll should be the same size as the wire that you're feeding. So if you're feeding 035 wire, the drive roll should be 035. If you're feeding 045, it should be an 045 drive roll. The other thing we want to check is right down there, you see a connection. It's got a red ring around it. It's got a lead that goes from that positive terminal up to the drive roll assembly. That lead is what's putting power into the gun. And we'll talk about that. And that's how the gun gets its energy. Okay, now we're to the front of the machine. So we check to make sure we have input power. We check to make sure we have the right gas and the right gas connection. The gas hose should be a little gray thin hose that hooks into the back of the machine. We checked under the hood to make sure we got the right filler metal and the right drive rolls. Now we're going to turn the machine on. Now, as the machine turns on, it runs through diagnostics. It's going to go through a setup. You're going to see those numbers at the top there. It says 26.8 and 273 on this particular machine. Let's see if we can zoom out a little bit and give you guys a little better look at what that is. And there's the readings, okay? And the idea of those readings is that's your voltage and your wire feed speed. Now we're going to pan back a little bit. Okay, so here's our machine for the most part. Right now this machine is set up for regular, just gas metal arc welding. Actually, it's probably in spray based on the numbers that I'm seeing on the front end. So we're going to double check to make sure everything's correct. So we're going to push this button over here, and now I get to select what kind of gun I'm going to use. This one happens to be running on a MIG gun. You can also run a spool gun on these. Spool gun, XRA gun, Aluma Pro gun, Python, or back to MIG gun. We're going to be running in a regular standard MIG gun on this machine. Now we're going to switch again, and now we get to pick our process. Process light is lit down here, and it says gas metal arc GMAW MIG. If we go over here, we can also put it in pulse. So if you come across the machine and it looks weird, this could be one of the things you got going on. If you look up here, you have pulse MIG is lit, okay? We don't want that, so we want to go back here and put it back into MIG. MIG is looking good. Now we're going to click again. Wire, we don't get to select the wire when we're in MIG welding because it's just a standard wire. It's the standard filler metal. And we're going to hit it again, and now we get into timers. And the timers are what you can, are one of the other features of this machine. You can set it up for doing a lot of things. For you new guys, you're not going to worry about too many of these. They're running, I wouldn't run it much more than about 80. 80 usually works pretty well. Pre-flow, we don't have any pre-flow set. We don't want any pre-flow. You don't have any post-flow. You don't have any spot. And then the display should be the amps. Now, when we go back around, let's go to this pre-flow. If there's a pre-flow on this meter here, if it's showing a number there, that means it's going to flow that many seconds of gas before the gun will actually energize or before you can weld. It's good for doing things where you need a purged weld or where you want to make sure the gas is being delivered. But for most of what you guys are doing for you newer guys, you don't want anything in there. If there is something in there, you need to zero it out. Same with post flow. If you're into post flow, you're going to have a problem because the thing's going to want to post purge and it's going to waste gas when it's doing that. Spot, if the spot timer is on, what'll happen is it'll only weld for a short period of time, then it'll actually shut itself. It'll stop welding, and then you have to pull the trigger again to make it weld some more. And display amps, the other one you have is the wire feed speed. WFS is wire feed speed, and that wire is in inches per minute. But we want to display it in amps because amps is what the weld procedure actually calls out. Now, in the front of this is a little chart and a little diagram. And the diagram tells you a couple of things. This little writing right here in the corner are actually help codes. And what they're going to tell you is if you got something wrong. Particularly like a gun trigger is pressed or something along those lines. Things that are going on that make it so the machine won't run. A lot of times these machines also have in the front of them a little booklet. And it's usually glued to the inside front cover of the machines. Some of them it's not glued in there anymore, like this one. And it's got these pages in there that'll actually walk you right through the setup of this machine. Now, we want to go back to here. We're going to make it so we got what we want. We're going to angle up and okay. So here's how we change the voltage. Is on this side. We're going to dial this down a bit. And here's how we change our wire speed. Now, there's one more control on here that everybody seems to forget about, and that's this one underneath this button. And that's inductance. Inductance is what makes the weld be a little more fluid or wetter. So if you turn inductance up, the weld will be wetter. If you turn inductance down, the weld will be stiffer. Think of it as if you add water to concrete, it gets loose. If you take water out of concrete, it gets a lot stiffer. And think of it kind of like that. Hopefully this has been a helpful video for you guys when you're setting up on these machines. And we'll see you again on the next one.